Dr. Rika Chen had been warned about the Vakari cubs before arriving at Research Station Epsilon 7. They're apex predators in training, the departing xenobiologist had said, her arm still in a regeneration sleeve. 4 rows of teeth, retractable claws, pack hunters. Don't turn your back on them. But no one had warned Rika about their curiosity. The Vakari were a proud species feline in appearance, scaled like reptiles, with intelligence that had propelled them to space travel 3 centuries before humanity. Their homeworld of Vakros Prime orbited a binary star system, and evolution had gifted them every advantage: speed, strength, night vision that could pierce absolute darkness, and an olfactory sense that detected pheromones across kilometers. Adult Vakari barely tolerated humans. They saw the Federation's newest members as soft, slow, and laughably fragile. But their cubs were different. Rika had arrived on Vakros Prime to study their educational systems, part of humanity's desperate attempt to understand how other species raised their young for such excellence. She'd set up her equipment in the observation dome overlooking the primary training grounds, where cubs between ages 4 and 7 learned hunting, strategy, and survival. On her 3rd day, she'd made her first mistake. She'd taken notes. The cubs, 30 of them, each the size of a human 10-year-old, but infinitely more dangerous, had been practicing coordinated hunting maneuvers. Rika had watched through the dome's one-way glass, her stylus flying across her datapad, as she documented their formations, communication patterns, and tactical adjustments. What she hadn't realized was that Vakari cubs could smell the ozone from electronic devices. They could hear the faint tap, tap, tap of her stylus, and they could see the faint reflection of light off the supposedly opaque glass. They knew someone was watching. They knew someone was recording. The next morning, Rika found a dead grollup, a local 6-legged herbivore placed carefully outside her habitat module. Its neck had been cleanly broken, a perfect kill. Beside it, pressed into the purple sand, were 4 small claw marks. She'd photographed the grollup, documented the kill technique, and made notes about Vakari hunting efficiency. She hadn't thought much of it beyond academic interest. 2 days later, there were 3 grollups. Then a cluster of bioluminescent fungi. Then a perfectly preserved insect carapace that she'd never seen before, its iridescent shell catching the light of both suns. 10 was the first cub she identified. He was smaller than the others, his scales a darker shade of cobalt that made him nearly invisible in shadows. While the other cubs practiced their pounces and roars, 10 watched. He observed, and one afternoon, when Rika accidentally triggered the dome's external speaker, he'd looked directly at where she sat. Their eyes had met through the glass. Rika had frozen, her hand hovering over the datapad. 10 had tilted his head, a gesture that was universal across a dozen species she'd studied, and then deliberately, slowly, he'd placed a smooth river stone at the base of the dome. She'd documented it. Of course she had. The next morning, there were 17 stones, arranged in a spiral pattern. By the 3rd week, Rika's habitat was surrounded by offerings. Bones arranged by size, leaves organized by color, crystals sorted by luminescence. The cubs had apparently decided that the note-taking creature in the dome was collecting data, and by their logic, she must want all the data. 10 became her most frequent visitor. He'd arrive before dawn, dragging whatever he'd found once, an entire fossilized jaw that must have weighed as much as he did. He'd place it carefully, then sit and wait, his triple eyelids blinking in sequence, until Rika acknowledged the gift with a flash of her dome light. The other cubs followed his lead, but none with his dedication. Then the adults noticed. Rika was in her habitat when the alarm sounded 3 short bursts that meant Vakari elders approaching. She'd stood slowly, watching through the window as 5 full-grown Vakari, each 3 meters tall and rippling with muscle, approached her dome. She was going to die. But they hadn't come for her. They'd come to see the collection. The lead elder, a scarred female named Kethris, who served as the training master, had walked the perimeter of Rika's habitat, examining each offering. Her tail had lashed once, twice. Then she'd turned to where 30 cubs sat in perfect formation, watching. Who began this? Kethris had growled in Vakari standard, her translator rendering it in clipped, precise English. Ten had stepped forward. Rika had held her breath, certain she was about to witness the cub's punishment. Instead, Kethris had studied Ten for a long moment, then looked directly at the dome where Rika stood. The human takes notes, Kethris had said, because she wishes to learn. You bring her specimens because you understand that knowledge is the ultimate hunt. The elder's lips had pulled back, revealing rows of serrated teeth. In any other species, it would have been a threat display. On Vakari, it was a smile. Continue, Kethris had said. By the end of Rika's stay, her research had expanded far beyond educational systems. The cubs brought her everything: geological samples, biological specimens, even fragments of ancient technology they'd found in the deep caves. Ten and the others had become her research assistants, their natural hunting instincts channeled into scientific discovery. When Rika finally prepared to leave Vakros Prime, 30 cubs gathered outside her habitat. 10 approached, carrying something wrapped in broad leaves. He'd placed it at her feet and stepped back. Inside was a crystal flawless, naturally formed, and pulsing with faint bioluminescence. A gift that was his. Not found, but earned. From his first solo hunt, Rika had knelt, bringing herself to eye level with the cub who'd changed everything. Thank you, Ten, she'd said softly. Ten had chirped a sound young Vakari made before they learned to roar. Then he'd touched his claw to the crystal, and then to her data pad. Keep taking notes, the gesture said. Keep learning. As Rika's shuttle lifted off, she watched the cubs through the viewport. They sat in perfect formation, watching her leave, their tails swishing in synchronized farewell. The Vakari adults thought humans were weak, but their cubs had taught them something the elders were only beginning to understand: that humanity's greatest strength wasn't physical prowess or sensory superiority. It was the relentless need to observe, to document, to understand. And in a galaxy full of predators, curiosity might be the most dangerous weapon of all.